Hi there, Morgan here from Crafting a Lovely Life, and today I'm going to show you how to make these super cool light up signs using your Cricut to engrave acrylic. I love how these turned out and can't get over how easy it is to engrave with Cricut. I can't wait to show you how to make this fun project, so let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is measure our acrylic pieces so we know how large to make our designs. I'm going to work on the square piece of acrylic first, so I will set the round piece to the side for later. When you are measuring the acrylic, you want to make sure that you do not include the bottom part that sticks out in your measurement. That will be inserted into the light up base, so you will not be able to see any part of the design that is on that part. For this piece of acrylic, I have a 5x5 square space to work with. Now we are ready to upload our design in Cricut Design Space. So I will start a new project, then select Upload, and then select Upload Image. Next, I can browse to my file I want to upload. Both of the files I'm using today are available for free on my website, craftingalovelylife.com. I will put the full link to the designs in the description below so you can make these too. Now that I have my design uploaded, I'm going to make it a bit smaller so I have more room to work with. To get the design size to fit on my piece of acrylic, I'm going to go over to the Shapes area and select the Square option. Next, I can resize the square to 5 inches by 5 inches. This will act as a template so I can get my design sized correctly. I am also going to go up to the Operation drop-down and select Pin for the square so that I can see my design on the square a bit better. I decided to go with 4.75 inches for the width of my design. Then I centered the design on the square just to make sure I liked that size. I think that looks great, so now I will select my design and click Attach. This will keep all of the design elements together when we click Make It. We also need to change the operation for our design so that the Cricut knows to engrave instead of cut. So I will go back up to the Operation drop-down and click Engrave. Now we can select Make It. When you are engraving, it is super important to pay attention to where your design is on the mat in Cricut Design Space so you can match it up when you place the acrylic on the actual mat. So I'm going to place my square template so that the top left corner lines up with the 4 inches mark on the mat going across and down. This will make it super easy for me to get my acrylic in the right place on my actual mat. Then I will move my design to the center of the square template. Once I have the design where I want it, I will select the square template again, click the 3 dots on the top left corner, and click Hide Selected. Next, we can click Continue and select our material type. I am going to select Browse All Materials and search for acrylic. Then I will select the thickness that matches my acrylic and click Done. Now we are ready to place the acrylic piece on our strong grip mat. Most acrylic like this comes with a protective film on each side of the acrylic. I usually leave the bottom protective film in place until after the Cricut has finished the engraving, but you do want to make sure you take off the top protective film so the Cricut can engrave into the acrylic. Make sure you place your acrylic piece in the same spot on your mat that you did in Cricut Design Space. So I will place my acrylic so that the top left corner meets at the 4-inch mark going across and down. I'm going to use my brayer tool very carefully to make sure the acrylic is stuck down really well. We will also want to add some tape around all of the edges of the acrylic to make sure that it doesn't move around during the engraving process. I recommend making sure the tape does not overlap with any of the places where the design will be engraved. You will see later that some of my design didn't get engraved perfectly because the tape got in the way in some spots. So do your best to put the tape on the very outer edges where it won't interfere with the engraving. Next, we need to open Clamp B on our Cricut and remove the blade so that we can replace it with the engraving tool. You will also want to move the white rings that go across the roll bar so they don't interfere with the engraving process. So just move them all the way over to the right and left on the bar. Next, we are ready to start engraving. The arrow should be blinking so you can load your mat. Once the mat is loaded, the C button will start blinking and you can press it to start engraving. Once the machine is done, you can unload the mat. You will notice that there are little acrylic shavings from the engraving process all over the design. We will go ahead and remove the tape from the mat and use it to clean that all up. Next, you can remove the acrylic from the mat and then we can peel off the protective plastic from the back side of the acrylic. I found the best way to clean off the fingerprints and tape residue from the acrylic was to use a lint-free cloth with rubbing alcohol. Now I'm going to show you what this looks like once it's all lit up. How cool does this look? I absolutely love how this turned out. Next, I'm going to show you how to do this with the round piece of acrylic. The process is very much the same other than getting the design lined up. So I will go ahead and show you how to do that. Just like before, we will start by measuring our round piece of acrylic. Make sure when you are measuring the height that you do not include the bottom piece that will be in the light stand. So the available design space on my acrylic is 5 inches wide and about 4.5 inches tall. Now in design space, I'm going to create a new project, upload my design, make it smaller, and then create a circle shape that is 5 inches wide and 4.5 inches tall. This will act as my template so I can get my design placed correctly before engraving. I'm also going to change the operation to pen so that I can see inside of my circle template better. Next, I'm going to select my design and click Attach to make sure everything stays together during the engraving process. I'm also going to go ahead and change the operation for my design to Engrave. Now I can move my design over to the template and resize it to make sure it fits how I want. I am going to align the design next so that it is centered on the circle. I don't like how far over to the right it looks when it is centered horizontally, so I'm going to go ahead and manually move it over to the left a bit. I like how this looks, so I'm going to click Make It so we can get everything lined up on the mat. Even though this is a circle shape, I'm still going to line it up so that the top of the circle is at the 4-inch mark on the mat and the left of the circle is also at the 4-inch mark on the mat. This will make it easier to line up when I place the acrylic piece on the actual mat. Now I'm going to get the design centered on my circle template. Once the design is where it needs to go, I will select the circle template, click the 3 dots at the left, and click Hide Object. Next, we can click Continue and select our material type. It will be the same material type that we used previously. Once that is done, we can remove the top piece of protective film from the acrylic and then place it on our mat. Make sure the acrylic is in the exact spot that you have it in design space. In my case, I will place the top and left side of the circle on the mat at the 4-inch mark. Now I will use the brayer tool again and add my tape all around the acrylic. Again, I recommend trying to place the tape where it won't overlap with the design since that can actually mess up the engraving in places. I did a little bit of a better job with the tape on this one, but since this design took up the majority of the acrylic space available, there were still some spots on the outside edges that didn't get engraved properly. You may want to make your design smaller in design space to account for this. The engraving tool is still loaded into the machine and the white wheels are pushed all the way to the sides, so we are ready to load the mat and start engraving. Again, we will peel off the tape and use it to get the acrylic shavings off of the design. Then we can remove the acrylic from the mat and take off the protective film on the back. I also went ahead and cleaned this piece with a lint-free cloth and rubbing alcohol. Now we are ready to light them up. These were so much fun to make, and I love how easy it is to engrave acrylic with my Cricut. My kids have already requested special night lights for their rooms, and I can't wait to make them. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and get a chance to try out engraving acrylic with your Cricut. Don't forget to grab these free designs on my website listed in the description below, and be sure to subscribe so you can follow along as I share new crafty projects. Thanks so much for watching. Bye!